Okay, so let's begin. Um, Yesterday we talked about the concept of arrays, and that was the first topic that we discussed. The second topic was the for each loop. So we'll be revising the for each loop. So today's topics are we'll be continuing yesterday's topics only. So we'll be just revising uh, the for each loop. And number three, the third topic that we couldn't cover yesterday, that was searching in an array. So let us start by revising the for each loop that we learned yesterday. So remember the display function that we wrote yesterday. So void display with no arguments. Then we had a for loop where we had an integer variable I starting from 0, which was basically counting, keeping track of the index numbers of each element. So there were 10 elements. This was increasing by 1 at every step, and inside we were displaying the contents of the array. So the array was called n, sorry, no inverted commas, yeah. So the array was called n, so we were displaying n of I plus a space. So that was our display function that we had written yesterday. Now this particular piece of code, that is the for loop, this can be written in a very short way using the for each version of the for loop. So if I rewrite this for loop using the for each loop, it will look something like this: for um, int I, a colon, and then the name of the array variable without any third brackets. And inside, what we do is, instead of again using the array variable, we will directly be printing I plus a space. So this particular piece of code is the shorter version of this particular block. So as I told you, they'll be asking you about, so this is the for each loop. So for each version, they'll basically be asking you objective type questions from the uh, for each topic. So they'll give you a for loop like this, and they may ask you to convert it into a for each loop, or uh, maybe they could also give you in programming also, but that the chances of that are very less. So they won't specifically tell you to use a for each loop in your array program, but you can use it. It's better to use the extended version, just to avoid confusion, because you might make a mistake here. This is much more to explain. So there, as I told you, there is part marking, so it's better to use the extended version, where you, if you make a mistake in certain parts, you'll at least get the part marking. So, and just remember the for each loop for the objective purposes. So that was all about the for each loop that we talked about yesterday. Now coming to the third topic, which was searching. This is a very important topic for your exam. So it's important for the practicals as well as for the objective part. So searching is basically, so let us consider an array. Searching, as the name suggests, you'll be given a set of elements in the form of an array. So you'll have certain elements. Let us call this array again. Let us call this n. Just like I told you yesterday, an array is nothing but a single row of labeled boxes. I'm labeling them. These are the indexes of each element. And let us consider a few, example values. So let's say 5, 6, 10, minus 5, 21. Now you'll be given a set of elements like this. So you'll be given certain values in the form of an array. Or let's say you'll be given just the values. You would have to, define an array and store the values in the array. The next thing that they will give you is something called a key. So what is a key? As I told you yesterday, a key is nothing but a unique value or element. So by element, I mean the values that are stored in the array. These are nothing but, so these are called elements. So these are called elements. So the values that are stored in the array are called elements. And key is basically the value that is to be searched in the array. So the value that you have to search for in the array is called the key. So let's say the questions asks you to check whether this particular array has the value 10. So you have to search for the value 10 in this particular array. So in this particular array, you have to search for the value 10. And if you find the value in the array, then you have to return the position of the value, as in where the value is located in the array. So you just have to return the index number of the value if you find it inside the array. Let's say you do not find the value inside the array, you'll just display a statement that says the value was not found. And if you find the value in the array, just like in this case, I start looking from the first position in the array. So I have to search. This is the key value to be searched in the array. So they have asked me to search for the value 10 in the given array. So I'll start by comparing the first element in the array with this. So 5 and 10 are not equal. So I move on to the next value in the array. I compare 6 to 10. Again, they are not equal. I again move on to the next value in the array in the next step. Now I compare 10 with 10 and I get a match. So as soon as I get a match in the array for the key value that is to be searched, I'll return this particular, I'll find out where have I found the match, the position where I found the match, and I'll have a print statement which will display this position where I have found the element. So let us take a look at the question, how the question will be framed. So they'll give you a question like this: write a program to um, enter 10 numbers. Also enter a number from the user and check whether it is present in the array. So the question will be something like this. They'll ask you to enter 10 numbers. They'll also ask you to enter another number from the user as well and check whether it is present in the given 10 numbers. So let's take a look at the code. So again, since we have inputs, we'll be using the scanner class. So I'll import the scanner class. This program will be pretty similar to the program from yesterday, except that I'll have another function for searching the value that is entered by the user. So just take a look at the code, copy it down in your copy, and just compare yesterday's code with this code. There'll be a lot of things similar, only a few differences, and I'll just write the part where it is different in a different color so that it's easier for you to understand. So class array, I'll have an array variable defined here. I already know the size of the array. Let's call it n again as in the previous program. New int. I already know the size of the array. I need to work with 10 numbers, so the size of the array is 10. Again, I'm not writing a constructor. I'll be leaving that to the default constructor. I'll directly go to the feed array function, which will take input for the array elements. So inside the feed array, I'll have something similar to previous day's code. So I'll have the scanner class defined here. Now I'll have the for loop, to enter numbers into the array. So it will start with 0 as usual. It will go up till before 10. So it will run 10 times from 0 to 9. And inside I'll have so yeah, again, one thing I forgot. So I forgot to display a message to the user to enter the numbers. So that will come here, sopln. So I'll ask the user to enter 10 numbers. Next, I'll have the for loop. Inside the for loop, I'll do the usual thing that we did yesterday. So n of I is equal to, that's the variable, array variable with the index, which is controlled by the loop variable. And just like we take input for integers, this part is just similar to that, same thing. So that's the for loop, and that's the end of our feed array function. Next we have the so a display function is optional here. You could write the display function to check the numbers that have been entered. So let me just write a quick short display method using the for each loop. So before that, let me give a message to the user, sopln the numbers in the array are as follows, and then I have the for each loop. So for int I, for each int I in the array n, sop I plus a space, and that's my display function. So after the display function, I'll have a function to search for the key element. So I'll be writing that here. So I'm defining it as void. I'll be displaying. So if I find the element or the key value in the array, I'll be displaying the message in this function itself, whether I find it or not. So I'm declaring it as void, and let's call it search void. Let's call it key search. This will have, or I could just, define it as not taking any arguments. You could also, take an input from the user in the main function and then pass it here as an argument. But since we are, um, since we are doing everything inside the function, so I'm just implementing it in this way. So void key search. Here I'll have an SOPLN statement that will ask the user for the value to be searched, enter the number you are looking for. Now after the message, I'll just use a for loop. So I have for. Before that, I'll have something. So I'll define one variable here. This, just remember, this is a very important variable. So you have previously seen the use of flag variables. So I'll be using a flag variable here. I'll be setting this to 0. This basically is, a variable to store the result of search. Result of searching. So the flag variable, what it does is, it's initially, set to 0. I'm defining it as int. I could have defined it as boolean also. We have learnt about the boolean keyword, but because I'll be, needing the position of the value, so I'm searching for a value. If I find the value, I have to return the position, or rather I have to display the position where I found the value. So I'll be storing the position value in the flag variable itself. So that is why I'm defining it as an int and not a boolean data type. So let's proceed with the code, and it will be clear as we move on. So this is the again this for loop is again the same. So the for loop is again the same as we were, using it in the feed array function and the display function. Inside, what we will do is, so one thing that we forgot is, we asked the user to enter a value, but we forgot to take input for the value. So we'll be taking input for that value here. So just let me erase this whole thing and rewrite this. Since we are taking inputs, we'll have the scanner class defined here. So scanner object, because we have to take an input inside this function, so we are defining a scanner object inside this function. Now we'll ask the user so enter the value that you are looking for. So once we have displayed the message, we'll take the value in a variable called key, which we are searching for. So int key is equal to sc dot next int. This is basically the value to be searched in the array. Now we will have the for loop. So the same definition of for to loop through the 10 values inside the array. Now inside the for loop, we'll have if statements to check whether we have found a match or not. So if uh, key is equal to, so key is the value that the user has entered, that's the value that we are looking for inside the array. So if key is equal to n is the array, n of I is the value at the ith position in the array. Then we set flag to the position where I found the value, and I break. Okay, and my for loop ends here. So pay attention here. What we are doing inside the for loop is we are starting from the first index, that is 0. We are coming inside. We have an if statement where we are checking for the match, whether we find the key in the array. So for at first iteration, the value of I is 0. So we are checking if key is available in. So if key is equal to the value stored at the ith location, we set the flag value to the position where we have found the key value in the array. If not, then so if the if statement is false, then it doesn't come inside and the flag is not changed. But if the if statement, if we find a match and the if statement is true, it comes inside, sets the flag to the current position of the element, and breaks off from the entire operation. So it breaks off from the entire for loop. So once we find the key, there's no point in searching further. And outside the for loop, we'll check if flag is equal to 0. So initially flag was 0. Okay, we again forgot to define the flag variable. So let me define it here. So int flag is equal to 0. So initially the flag variable is 0. So this is nothing but uh, stores the status of searching. So the flag variable basically stores the status of searching. It's initialized to 0 at the beginning. So if this if statement is never true throughout the loop, which means that we haven't found a match, then flag remains 0, which suggests that we haven't found a match and the key was not found in the array. So it's pretty simple. We have a key value that has been entered by the user. This is the value that is to be searched inside the array. So we are searching. So looking for a match. So we are using the if statement to look for a match in the array. So we are, starting from the first position, we are comparing the key value with the values in the array location starting from the first position. If we find a match, which means the if statement is true, we change the value of flag to the position where I found the value. Otherwise, the nothing gets, it does not go inside the if statement at all. So flag remains 0. If this particular statement is false throughout the loop, then flag remains 0 as it was initialized in the beginning here. If I find a match, then the flag is set to the position where I found the match. So if flag is not equal to 0, So that will come under the else part. Else SOPLN, the key was found, the key was found at, then a space, plus I have the location where the key was found stored in flag. So the flag variable, I'm just adding one to it. Why am I adding one to it? I'll be telling you that in a moment. So the key was found at the flag plus 1th location in the array. I'm just formatting the output a little. Why flag plus 1? So the reason why I'm doing flag plus 1 is because, as you remember, take a look at the for loop. As you can remember, the first element, the 1th location is indexed as 0. The second location is indexed as 1 in the array. So remember the array. So this was the array. Remember we had elements, so 5, 7, 9, and so on. So the first index was 0, the second index was 1, the third index was 2. So, but the position, this was the first position, this was the second position, this was the third position. So the first position has an index of 0. I'm actually storing the index value in the flag variable. So I'm adding 1 to it just to, correspond to this first, second, third, and so on. So the 0th index corresponds to the first location, which means flag plus ith location. So that is why I'm, adding 1 to the flag variable, the value of the flag variable. So normally we don't count from 0, we count from 1. So that's the reason why we're adding 1 to flag variable and then displaying the results. So that's the end of the search method. So this is the only new method that is going to be added to the program from yesterday. Next we'll again have the main method, where so we'll have the main method public static void main, and this is basically same. So public static void main, the same way we write the function header for main, or rather the function signature of main remains the same, no changes there. Inside the main function we define an object of the class array1 obj is equal to, so let us take a look at the name of the class. Yeah, we had named it array1. So new array1, so this is the call to the default constructor. Now we are just calling the method, so obj dot feed array. So first we need to enter elements into the array, so we call the feed array function. Next we call obj dot display momentarily to display the values that have been entered into the array. Lastly, we call the new method that we have written. So it was called key search. So obj dot key search. This will basically uh, take an input from the user for the key value, search it inside the array. If it finds the location, if it finds the key value, it will print the location. If it doesn't, it will say key not found. So that's all there is to it, regarding searching. So this is the end of class. So this is the end of class array 1, and that is my whole program. So it's the same program from yesterday, except that I have a new function now to search for a given value inside the array. So you just need to study this particular portion of the code. So this particular portion of the code is new. Apart from that, everything is same from yesterday's code. So this particular piece of code is for searching an element inside the array. So I'll have a flag variable. Once again, let's just quickly revise what we are doing inside the search method. So we have a flag variable that stores the status of searching inside the array, whether I have found the variable or whether I have not found the variable. The status of that will be stored in the flag variable. We take input for the key value that is going to be searched. We take it from the user. Inside the for loop, this is a for loop to traverse. So loop to traverse the array. So we're basically moving from starting from the first element, we are moving one by one inside the array. So starting from the first element, we take out the first element here. We compare it with the key value. If we find a match, we set the flag to the position where we found the match and we break off. Otherwise it continues. Otherwise this loop continues to run as long as there are elements in the array. Finally, outside the for loop, we come outside the for loop and we check for the value of flag. So if flag is equal to 0, which means this particular statement was never true and therefore the key was not found. But if this particular statement was true, then flag has already been set to the position where we have found, and in this statement we just print the position where I have found the key value in the array. So I hope searching inside the array should be clear. Just go through the whole program code once and tell me if you have any doubts. And so I'll explain the doubts in the next class. First, take a look yourself. Try to understand how it's working. So we are basically taking out the first. So we are basically starting from the first element. We are comparing it to the key value to find a match. If I do not find a match, then I move on to the next element. I again compare it with the key value. If I do not find a match, I move on to the next element and again compare with the key value. So in this way, we move on inside the array one by one. We move on to the next value, next value, next value, and we keep comparing it with the key value as long as we either find a match or we run out of elements inside the array. So either we exhaust the whole array, traversing from the first position up till the end, or we find a match and we break off. We do not compare anymore further. So two things might happen. Just let me list those two things that might happen during a search. So things that might happen during search. So during searching, these are the things that might happen. So the first thing that might happen is element is found. That is the first thing that will happen. Otherwise, The second thing that might happen is element is not found and the array is exhausted. So we keep on traversing the array starting from the first position. To either of the two things might happen. Either we find the element at a particular position or we keep on searching until we exhaust the whole array. Just one last thing before we end today's class. Just let's take a look at the flowchart diagram of this whole process of searching. So there will be a start. You'll have an array. So I have an array. I already have an array. Now what I'll do is I'll get a key. So I'll get a key value. So let me just make this bigger and write the whole thing. So take input for elements of array. Next we get a key value from the user. Now we come to the if part. So again I have to draw it a bit bigger. So let me write it first. So get a key value if, now let's call it key found. So just do it a bit more neatly. So here we have a question, key found, whether the key has been found or not. So this can either be true or it could be false. So it could be true. If it's true, then we uh, okay, we store, rather let's call it, we get the position, where it's found. Let's call it index instead. So get the index. If the key is found, we get the index where it's found. Otherwise, if it's false, rather let's skip this part. Let's skip. So there's no point in writing it in full detail inside a flow diagram. So let's say if we find the key, we simply display the position where found. Otherwise, if the key is not found, display key not found. And finally, we have the stop. Rather, it's not a circle, it's rounded. This too will be rounded. So that is the flow diagram for the search operation inside an array. So there's a start for start operation. We start the program. We take inputs for the elements of the array. We get a key value from the user. Now we check whether the key is present inside the array. So if the key, whether the key is found, that's a question. So this is basically the if statement. If the key is found, which means it's true, we display the position where the key was found and we stop. Otherwise, if the key is not found, we display the key not found and then we stop. So that's pretty much simple. So that's a simple flow diagram for the search operation. So this is basically the flow chart for search program. So I hope searching should be clear by now. And that was the last topic that we had left uh, to cover in the previous class. So I hope searching is clear, and that shall be all for today's class.